A counter in Smash Bros. Is a move where a character becomes invulnerable for a short period of time, and if an opponent or projectile hit the counter while it's active, an invincible counterattack will follow and hit the opponent back. Now, when should you counter? Well, there are 4 main cases: to cancel the opponent's recovery, to cancel projectiles, to break non-true combos, and to read an opponent's attack. But before I talk about the good, let's talk about the bad, because it's better to never use a counter than to use them too much or at the wrong time, since all counters can be punished with the slowest and strongest moves in the game if you happen to miss time yours. First, countering the air stops virtually all or most horizontal and upwards movement, and leaves you quickly descending if you happen to miss time yours. If you counter too low or too far away from the stage, chances are you won't be making it back unless your recovery is very good. And even if you successfully counter an attack, you still might not make it back. Next, don't be predictable. It sounds basic, but in a match you can find it hard to change a habit that may work on many people and seems so rewarding. If someone predicts your counter, you can guarantee that you will be taking at least 30% or more, or lose a stock entirely. The better a player is, the more likely they will remember the last time you countered them and avoid it. Simply put, don't use them too much or at random. Lastly, don't try and counter every single projectile. Some of the weaker projectiles can be chased after and are usually used to follow up and getting close to you. You can't expect to counter all 3 of Toon Link's projectiles flying at you at different speeds and angles and expect him not to punish you for trying to counter, because you have so much end lag after your counter, he can pretty much do whatever he wants to you. Countering recoveries can be a very effective way of edge guarding depending on the opponent's recovery. Here's an example of this. Note that this only works on slower recoveries with the hitbox simply because counters don't come out frame 1. So, certain recoveries, similar to Marth's, will almost always bypass attempts to counter them. Another way counters can be used against recoveries is to punish an opponent for not perfectly grabbing the ledge if their character has a hitbox at the end of their recovery move. Easy characters to punish in this way are Ike, Cloud, and Terry due to their difficulty or inability to perfectly grab the ledge. Unfortunately for Ike and Chrom, there is no way to sweet spot the ledge, so being able to counter their recoveries is always guaranteed, as long as the counter has a large enough range, like Joker's. And if you do manage to counter these recoveries, you essentially get a guaranteed KO. This is a more risky and challenging way to use counters, and in many cases it is the wrong choice to deal with a projectile. However, there are still times where this is the safer or even best option. If your shield is very low, you don't feel confident about dodging the projectile, and you know you have the reaction time necessary to see the projectile coming and time your counter appropriately, then counter. Countering in the air may leave you vulnerable after successfully stopping the projectile, but not as vulnerable as any air dodge, or using your jump. And jumping is exactly what your opponent wants you to do, so they can get the easy KO when trying to edge guard you. Of course, there are the few counters that are also reflectors, so these are the main way you want to deal with projectiles while using characters such as Joker, Palutena, or K. Rool. But if you're trying to counter a projectile on stage, you generally have to be very far away from the opponent, or simply shield instead. This is because countering can be very slow even after the hit, and it gives your opponent time to close that distance between you, and maybe even make you panic and do an option that isn't safe. Now, in case you don't know this, when someone says a combo isn't true, it typically means you can perform some action between 2 of the attacks in the string of the combo. In this case, you would want to use the opportunity to counter. An easy example of this is when Greninja does dash attack to fair. Sure, it works if you press nothing, but you can jump or dodge out of it. Additionally, you can counter before the fair hits you, breaking Greninja's flow as well as knocking them far away and giving you stage advantage. You must keep in mind though that you're fighting a human, not a CPU. After getting countered like this once or twice, they may begin to predict your counter and, instead of doing dash attack to fair, they might dash attack, wait, and F smash. A simple but effective action to punish greedy or predictable counters. And finally, the last scenario is getting reads, aka making an educated guess on your opponent's next action. The same logic applies here to any other action you perform when you try and read an opponent's attack, but this is fairly unsafe regardless of how certain you are. It is a high risk, high reward option. If that Ganon player ran off and down aired you last stock, you better believe he wants another easy kill on you. So countering just off stage where you have a jump and know you can make it back will certainly work. But similar to what was said about combo breaking, using counter to read will change the way your opponent plays as they try to avoid getting countered again. So you must be careful and use counter rarely and intelligently, or else you will take a hard punish and possibly lose the match. Well, that's it for this video. Subscribe if you want more content like this in the future, and thanks for watching.